Okay, today I have the privilege of sharing with you some keys, some tips, and tools from my life that have been profound in helping me when I get overwhelmed. And I've seen the change from being overwhelmed to where I used to be to a much more balanced life and also a life that is flowing. And there were things that I had to learn to get from one place, being overwhelmed, to experiencing more balance to it, my life flowing. And when I applied those things, um, my life just started to get in order more. It became more ordered, and I didn't react to things so much. So I'm going to share with you some things that I've thought about and some challenges that I've been through and what I did with them. So you might learn from those. I think the first thing, even though as I was talking to you then, is one of the great things I learned, and I was going to share this, but it just came to me then, is expectations. I used to have huge expectations of myself, and I had no idea I had that. I just thought I was doing the right thing, and um, and so therefore I was left in a place of disillusionment. And even though I had these high expectations, and I did what I did, I would never get the result that I wanted. It never really satisfied my soul, and it only lasts for a short period. And I would get disappointed. Expectations lead to disappointment. Having an expectant faith in the one who is within us to accomplish things and through his love, to love when we can't love, to do what we can't do, and allow that, just begins to change the type of person we are, our attitudes. We ended up with the GA, I call it, rather than a BA. A good attitude rather than a bad attitude. Bad attitudes block. But let me start first with the story. I'm talking about a person called Julian at the moment, who feels like the world is against him. It's like if anything could go wrong, it would go wrong. You talk about being overwhelmed. It's like he's been challenged with being treated poorly by other people from when he was really little, again and again and again, really challenged and abused, really, mentally and emotionally abused, bullied again and again and again, and just sort of knocked down and just gets up again and gets knocked down again. And after doing this for years and years of getting up in his own strength, he just feels like, and this is where the blocks happen, our reaction to what happens to us, and we can't understand why. I used to be there. I used to get bullied, and I couldn't understand why. But now I understand why. And when I understood and I learned the key and I applied it, I never got bullied anymore. Seriously, I never got bullied. People don't even try now. It's massive. So some of the keys today are relevant, are very much relevant to this topic, to this particular person and to myself. So one of the ways out that Julian thought was the way out was to turn on himself. Now I've seen that over 22 years, over and over again. When you get a lot of challenges and people treat you badly and poorly and abuse you in one form or other, we ought to react and become very angry and aggressive, and then life doesn't flow at all, or else we retreat and we close the door and we don't want to know anything and anyone. And then we do some other things. And this, in Julian's case, he shared that he wished he was dead. And you can understand why people want to be dead. I mean, years ago, I wanted to be dead. I just thought it would be better to be dead than alive. This is many, many years ago when I was literally overwhelmed. And in that moment when I thought that thought, I could have ended my life, but I decided at that moment I would live for others, for my family. That's how bad the pain is. So I understand the pain of Julian's. And I understand him wanting to be dead. There's never a blame or judgment. It is just a reality of his reaction to being treated so badly in life and being betrayed, etc. And he hates, the other thing is, as I said, he hates himself. He's turned on himself. And that's, if I've seen that once, I've seen it hundreds of times, where people have turned upon themselves and hated themselves, judged themselves, blamed themselves, particularly when they're little and something has happened, physical abuse as well as mental and emotional abuse. They somehow either turn around and say, it must be me. It must be my fault. I'm responsible. Now that's a belief. And if you believe you're responsible, then everyone else makes you responsible in the world. And it's heavy and it's hard and you get overwhelmed. And you have a desire for people to love you, and you want something from them. You want to be loved by them, but you've got nothing to give because you hate yourself. You've got nothing to really give. You want them to give you something to fill you up. And I had to learn in that state, when I was in that stage, in that challenge, and I was overwhelmed, literally overwhelmed, that I had to really learn through a really, really hard journey to go to the one who's the only one who within me has the truth about myself, the truth about what I think, that made the transformation in me where darkness became light and I didn't feel alone, lost. I didn't feel responsible, bad, and I felt bad all my life, even though I was trying so hard to be good. So all of that dissolved, but I had to bring it to the light. I had to allow the wonderful counsellor, the divine physician, to bring up what I had felt, what I'd believed, and my response to that, which is what Agape Encounter is all about. We encounter ourselves, and then we encounter unconditional love. So those ways of reacting are blockages. And if we close the door and we say things like, no, I don't talk about feelings, no, I don't want to go there, no, it's too hard, it's too scary, we actually close the door to our healing, to the way things can be light and free and easy. And talking about little challenges, yesterday I had a little tiny challenge. And I observed myself, because when you get used to doing this and become present to yourself, you become present to the energy that you move from. If you're moving from a negative energy, I'm sure you would all know about that, then you will attract negativity. You will attract, if you get angry more often, others will get angry. If you get frustrated and you express it, they'll get frustrated. So our energy is important. So if I've got negative energies, I did yesterday, I deal with it. What did I do? I got really frustrated, but I recognized the energy because I spend time each day being still, being present, and practicing being present. It's an ongoing journey. And what was the remedy? Things weren't working. I looked at what I was doing. Links weren't working. And yet it was working for me, and it was a tiny thing. But so you can use these tools and for little things or big things in your life. But I dealt with it straight away because I knew that if I don't deal with this energy now, it's like you get on another railway track. And that energy attracts all the negative, bad things, and it compounds, and then you become overwhelmed. So what did I do? I stepped back. I just got present to the fact that I was frustrated, a bit angry. I was a bit over it. And I mean, I could say to myself, I'll get over it, Helen, grow up. But I didn't. I just listened to how I felt. And just in listening to myself, because if you're not present to you, how can others be present to your authentic self? So you've got to start with yourself and your creator, and then relationships fall into place. And they'll come and they'll go, but it won't worry you anymore. It just is. So I came to a great calm just by listening to myself. Only took a couple of minutes. Then I tried again and I got a thought. See, the thing is, I got unclogged in my mind and I got an idea to text somebody. And it was just over like that. There was a solution straight away. So I want to talk about Sally now. Do you find that you are with people that are negative at any time in your life? Negative, have a constant negative perspective, criticizing, comparing, judging, and being in their presence is heavy. Anyone felt like that before? Well, I had that growing up to some degree, and I've had an experience recently with Joe, and I thought, okay, and I stopped because I realized I was being affected. And I thought, I need to deal with me. I thought, well, the wonderful word I'm going to give you, one of the keys is to say, what can I do? So I thought, okay, stand back, deal with yourself, bring the person into your mind, Helen, say what you want to say, express your feelings, get them up so you get unclogged and unbogged, and then wait. And then I was shown a different perspective of this person. And I calm just by listening to myself. And I was given another tool. Another tool with negative people is to actually I could respond and react by getting frustrated, which I've done before, which only compounds things and we all get overwhelmed and just separates relationships. So as I stood back, I got this idea some time ago to feed back to negative people so you don't get overwhelmed by their negativity, by their whatever they're being, which is really dragging you. You just don't want to be in their presence. So you can feed, one of the ways you can do it is feed back to them. Everything that you said. Oh, so I heard you say, and it's always a negative perspective on something. It might be, oh, it's going to rain, for ages. Oh, the holiday's going to be terrible, or it's never going to change. Feed back to them what they're saying, because more often than not, people don't hear what they're saying. And then sometimes you can say, well, if I felt like that, this is going back to yourself. I'd feel heavy. I don't know, do you feel heavy? They may respond, they may not, but it may open the door a little bit to them listening to how they're speaking. It may change them, but in the end, the key is you can't change others. You can certainly help by certain tools. You can only change yourself. So what I do is when they don't listen, when I do all the tools that I've learned and ask the questions, and what I do is I just stand back and I just simply have this little dialogue in my mind between wisdom and myself and saying, right now, I need your help. Right now, I could bonk them on the nose or I could give them a flipping shake. Right now, I need your help. Speak through me, act through me. What am I to do? So allow the greatest teacher of all to teach you. What is the greatest teacher going to show you in that moment, and go with it and look at the results? Now, all of this is fantastic, but you're feeling overwhelmed is not going to go away if you're not listening to yourself, if you're not really hearing what's behind what people are saying, and if you're not listening to the third perspective. All the things I've just said, as I've said before, your life is what your thoughts make it. If you think something, particularly then when you speak it, you start to create it, you start to draw it to you. So there's a beautiful bit of, or we're talking about all this heaviness and negativity, and knowing also well, as I said to you earlier about Julian and myself, a lot of my problems and his started when I was very young. We can, through wonderful facilitating, ask the wonderful counsellor to take us back to the root and origin. And we can often go back into a blank space, which is trauma, or go into a dark space and we float in and out of it. I had a shock on the way home with someone's very negative reaction that came out of the blue. I didn't expect it. That's a shock. And I actually didn't realise, but it was like a part of me just went into this foggy space. That's shock as well. Again, I had to deal with my feelings. And it wasn't until I dealt with all my feelings that I realised when I actually went and saw this person, but I realised I really had forgotten names of places. I couldn't remember. I was in this fog. Blankness can do that. Being in the dark can do that. And so I had to deal with all my feelings. And then suddenly it was like a light was switched on. I could remember all those names of places we'd been. Suddenly I was back in myself. So that's another way of dealing with it as well. And there's a beautiful thing which affirms what I'm saying. It says, come to me, or you already know this, you who labour and are heavy burdened. Who's me? It's the one that creates you, lives within you, is within everything. And I, not Joe Blogs, and not a holiday. A holiday will help to a certain degree. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. In other words, listen to me and to what I want you to take on in life. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. That's your whole being. For my yoke, my way, is easy and my burden is light. So you know when you're heavy, you need to deal with your feelings. That's it. What's the other thing? I don't want to talk too long, but the other thing that blocks, and there's lots of them, and makes you overwhelmed, I've seen it, is I talked about it earlier about with Julian, being responsible. It's my fault. Many people then take on the role as they've buried themselves. They've become responsible for everybody and everything to fix it. That's what I did. And it became heavy and hard and never worked, as I said. We become controlling. These are roles out of fear, because if we're not in control, I know people have almost died and they have to be in control of situations because they're frightened. Taking on control, behind it is fear, not peace. We become guarded and protected, reactive. They're like a tarantula. Or we become a victim and we become stuck. Do any of you relate to that at all? I think I've done just about every one of them. That's how I've come to know them. And because I've listened to people for years, and I've heard them go back to the root and origin of I don't know, the school teacher being really abusive and making them go into a foggy place and feeling like it was their fault. The way out is to listen to the truth. Wonderful counselor, is this true that I'm an idiot? Is it true it's my fault? Is it true that I have to be responsible on my own strength? But then we have to listen. And practical hits, and I'm going to finish with this. Practical things. When you get overwhelmed in the day, you have so many things to do. That can be in your mind. To put them on a list is fantastic, because it gets it from your mind to a list. Now I know Tim, who didn't know how to do that. He does that. But guess what? Now he makes a list of things and he gets overwhelmed with the list. So what do you do with the list? The list is not meant to overwhelm you. It's meant to release you. And what you do with the list is you go through them and you look at the one which is the top priority. That's it. And you do focus at that one, look at that one. Your happiness and your peace is not when the list is finished. Tim has realised when that list is finished, another list comes. Just do one at a time and you won't get overwhelmed. I remember coming back from a holiday once and I bumped into Tim and he looked really grey and dead and lifeless. And I just listened to him and he said to me, oh, I've had all these things to do. And he went on with all of these things, these lists of to-do lists. He's had no balance. I haven't talked about balance. He hadn't gone to gym, hadn't done something in the day that brings him life, a walk, a swim, I don't know, going for a coffee with a friend, something in the day that brings human balance, spending time, quiet time each day. That's what I do. A balance is a quiet time. I have a coffee. I do exercise because I used to be chronically overbalanced because I was there to fix everyone. I was there to help everybody. And all I did was go down the black hole like Tim did. He felt exhausted, tired, grumpy, irritable, out of sorts. So whenever you get like that, remember, if you're grumpy, irritable, tired, whatever, stop. Have you got balance? If you haven't got balance, what can you do? That word again. So I just see everything. The past needs to be resolved if it keeps coming up. I practice living in the present moment so I don't get overwhelmed. I don't let the past drag me back. I deal with it. And in the future, I let the future be there. I make draft plans. I don't hang on to that holiday. That I used to hang on to having something all the time, which is nice to do, but don't make it your priority. It becomes an idol because when it goes, then you've got to do it again. And it only satisfies your soul. It brings balance. What does fill you and satisfy your soul is spending time each day, being still, just whatever that is for you. There are lots of meditations on our website, and there's also lots of meditations on YouTube. I see life as an adventure now, living for and with my Creator. When I don't, I need to deal with, here I go again. When I get overwhelmed, and we've certainly had plenty of opportunity to be overwhelmed this week with hospitals and all sorts of stuff, then I just go back and say, as a result of all, how do I feel? And I sit and I allow myself to unload, and then I wait until peace comes, until presence comes. I have no idea about the future. I don't know what's going to happen to that person or that situation. I just keep surrendering them so that no temptation, and my temptation is to take over and fix it and control it. You expect no temptation has overcome you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. I'm believing that. I'm doing what this does. Can you see this? I'm hanging in there. But rather than hanging onto a rope like that, I'm hanging on to the one within me and within the people that I see from time to time that are in a crisis, and thanking him for bringing them through, particularly when they won't listen and haven't learned to listen. They have to do their journey. I realise that now. And all I can do is be present to them in the way I can be. That is loving to them at that moment and love them unconditionally. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. I'm going to finish with this. Therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. Even Bruce, my husband, said to me, how can you be thankful and praising God for when things are so bad? Because I said, because it's an act of faith, because I can't fix it, because he can. And I'm thanking him that he would do that. And that makes me, I actually feel better doing that than feeling depressed and looking at all that's wrong. You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. That's what I've experienced. That's what comes I oscillate a bit, but I know what to do to get back to it. That's what I hope out of today. Just one thing that you've heard. What's the one thing you've heard that you don't do that you could do? Just think for a moment. The one thing. I ask wisdom within you to show you what is that one thing. And hold on to that. Practice that. And you'll fail. Give yourself a hug. Learn from it. Try it again, but with His grace. And see the difference it makes to your life, particularly feeling more balanced rather than overwhelmed. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear some feedback. Let us know on agapeencounter.org.